Welcome back to Racing Rundown. On today's video, we are previewing the Grade 2 Stephen Foster Stakes at Churchill Downs, a mile and an eighth for 4-year-olds and upward. This is the first U.S. race preview that we've done in a couple of weeks on Racing Rundown. We had a lot of stuff from Europe the past couple of weeks, but because this is the winner of this race gets an automatic berth into the Breeders' Cup Classic, and it is probably one of the better races on this 4th of July weekend. I thought that it was worth doing a preview for. This race is going to be rather one-dimensional the way I see it set up, but I am going to talk about all 7 of the horses in here, as you can see them all right there in front of you. Probably the favorite for this race will be the number 3 Olympiad, although we do have the Kentucky Derby winner from last year, Mandaloun, in this race as well, in addition to those two, Grade 1 winner American Revolution. So this is a quality race, and we'll start off with the number 1 horse in this race, and that is Caddo River for Brad Cox. This horse is coming into this race off of 3 straight victories in Allowance Company. He's had 5 starts this year, took a couple runs in Allowance Company to get the ball rolling for him. And even you go back to last year, it took him three starts after the break post Woody Stevens to be able to get in the winner's circle, and he's done that 3 straight times. The problem with him is, if we scroll down further, he's never really been a graded stakes quality horse. He didn't run bad in the Arkansas Derby, but it should be mentioned that that Arkansas Derby has not come back to be a good race at all. There isn't much form from the Rebel either, so Caddo River just is a step below graded stakes level horses. Maybe he's improved a little bit, but I have a hard time believing with 3 Grade 1 caliber horses in this race on their best day that Caddo River is going to be able to find something in him to be able to beat at least one of those 3 horses, if not all 3 of them. So he's going to be a fade for me in this race. We'll move on to the number 2 American Revolution. Also a fade for me in this race, but I don't think he's as bad as that 4th place effort in the Blame Stakes indicates. Obviously not, because he was a Grade 1 winner last year. I really think he needed that start in the Blame Stakes. It really seemed like Todd Pletcher wanted to get him into the New York bred stake. It was the commentator that he was going to run in the week before the Blame Stakes at Belmont. That race didn't fill, and Todd Pletcher had to change plans, run him at Churchill, which he didn't want to do. That probably wasn't the plan, and I can imagine that that's what contributed to the horse not running as well as they would have wanted him to. Now, that said, I'm not picking him in this race, and it's simply going to boil down to, I think Olympiad's a better horse than him, but it makes a lot of sense for him to bounce back after that Blame Stakes, because it wasn't where they planned to have him run. He definitely needed the start going into this year. So I'm not going to include him in an exacta, because it would be a very, that potential exacta wouldn't pay anything. And I do think that there's a slight chance you can get a better horse than him, but he makes the most sense for a runner-up spot in this race. And I did say, I do think the number 3 Olympiad, I think he will be the favorite, and I think he will be the winner of this race. He's going to be my pick. 3 straight really quality stakes wins for him. And Bill Mott has done a really good job. He's a 4-year-old now, so he's done a really good job of getting him to this point. He was a late starter in 2020. He did have 2 starts in 2020, but he missed the majority of his 3-year-old campaign, and wasn't quite ready for the Cigar Mile, but exiting the Cigar Mile, he has been fantastic. 4 victories, 3 of them in graded stakes races, and all have been quality stakes races. If you look at the fields he was going up against, a really good victory last time out in the Ali Sheba. He got shut off by Happy Saver, had to take up, and still ended up winning the race convincingly. I think that he'll win this race. I think that he's the best horse. And, if we're excluding Flightline and just looking at all the rest of the horses going 2 turns in this country, I think he's one of the top horses that isn't named Flightline. So I think this will be more of the same for him. And like I said, my pick in this race, rather easy pick. It's not fun to pick the favorite, but I don't see a reason I don't see a reason why he doesn't win this race. Now we're going to move on to Title Ready, the number 4 horse in this race. Not really too much to say for Title Ready. He's been a veteran of stakes for several years now, and maybe he'll be a board hitter, maybe he won't be. I would never pick him to hit the board. He's the kind of horse that if he hits the board, you just say, oh well. Again, I'm not making too much in terms of exotics for this video. If you get him at the right price, maybe a show wager for him, but I don't think he can win this race. He hasn't won a stakes race since January, of last year, and outside of that, there's not really too much graded stakes form for him. So obvious fade for me here. Now we're going to move on to one of my favorite horses and a horse that I have burned one too many tickets on, and that is Proxy. If you're a longtime listener of Racing Rundown, you know I've been backing this horse since the Kentucky Derby Trail last year. I've been really hoping that he can break through and get a graded stakes victory in his career. He has not got that to date, and I don't think he's going to get it here, just because if you look at his form chart, he doesn't like to win races at the stakes level. He's kind of a hanger. He runs to his competition level, and he kind of runs the same race every single time. And he also is just beaten by better horses in particular races. Mandaloun and Midnight Bourbon were better than him in Louisiana. The two races in the Louisiana Derby and the Lexington, those were just bad races. And then Olympiad, Scalding, and Dynamic One were all better than him in his subsequent starts. That being said, you are going to get a better price on him in this race, I think, than you've gotten on him since, going back since to the early part of his 3-year-old campaign. So he might be worth a place wager in this race because he doesn't miss the board in his career. That's something that's never happened. He's never missed the board in 11 career starts, and he's been in the money in all but 3 of them, in all but 2 of them. So more often than not, you get paid by proxy when he runs in races. And as I said, you're going to get a better price on him in this race probably than you've gotten on him in over a year and a half. So definitely worth a show wager, if not a place wager in here. I'm going to play him in it. The play for this video is obviously going to be, as I said, Olympiad, but it's going to be him on top of Proxy in the exacta here. We're going to try to see if we can get Proxy home for second here. I don't think he'll win the race, but he does have a good chance to run well here. We'll move on now to the Kentucky Derby winner, Mandaloun. Off a very poor effort in the Saudi Cup. I call that track Groundhog Day. Any horse that runs bad there, I completely toss out the effort. But that said, Mandaloun's off a pretty significant break. I don't like to take horses off of breaks of this long. And the other thing with Mandaloun is he's a hanger. And yes, he is a Grade 1 winner, and he was a runner-up in the Kentucky Derby and has since been elevated to the Derby victory, but he's a hanger. And his best efforts have been in races where he was either running against a horse who was also a hanger in Hot Rod Charlie, who finished in front of him in that Haskell, or in the Lexington, not in the Lexington, in Louisiana this year, he beat Midnight Bourbon, who was also a hanger. If you remember our saying about Midnight Bourbon, he hates to pass horses, but he also hated being passed. And that's kind of what Mandaloun's career arc has been. He's a hanger, but his races have been overwhelmingly filled with horses who are also hangers. If you go back to his 3-year-old campaign last year, Midnight Bourbon and Proxy were horses that he ran against in all 3 of those races at the fairgrounds, and then Hot Rod Charlie in the Louisiana Derby. And the Louisiana Derby was a really weird effort, not indicative of the talent that he has. But the point is Mandaloun, I'm going to play against him, as I said, because he's a hanger. And also, because Hot Rod Charlie lost, I immediately said to myself after the Salvatore Mile, that has to mean that Mandaloun's a play against, assuming the right horse is there. Olympiad is in this race, the right horse is there, so I will be playing against Mandaloun in this race. Moving on to the last horse here, Last Samurai, the number 7 horse, extremely random horse. He's in this race coming out of a really strong victory in the Oaklawn handicap. Prior to that start, runner-up in the Temperance Hill. I always kind of felt that Last Samurai seemed like one of those marathon horses, but he turned up a surprise effort in the Oaklawn handicap. It was really strong, and I don't know what to do with him here. And when I don't know what to do with these kind of mystery horses that run random races all the time, I generally tend to fade them. And that's what I'm going to do with Last Samurai here. Again, kind of the same idea as Title Ready. Right price, maybe throw a show wager on him. Generally, that ends up working out pretty well for you if you look at the majority of his career. But I have no desire to burn money on Last Samurai in this race, so I will not be using him in this race. And if we go back to the 7 horses right here, as I said, the big play for this race is I'm going to play Olympiad on top of Proxy. 3-5 exacta, Olympiad the top pick. Proxy, like I said, I think you're going to get the best value on him than you've gotten on him in a very long time. And I'm going to try to play that, see if we can get this exacta home. With that being said, that's it for this preview on Racing Rundown. Keep an eye out for later on in the week. We will have a preview of the Group 1 Coral Eclipse for Racing Rundown around the world. Could potentially have one more preview depending on my availability in terms of being able to make it. Not going to guarantee that, but be sure to also keep an eye out for episode number 165 of Racing Rundown, where we're going to preview everything this holiday weekend. We'll see you for that and more. Have a good one.